Welcome to Popcorn Bucket List, the show where we try to get you back into the movie theaters. I'm your host, Nick Dahlhoff, and I'm wearing a different Justice League t-shirt this time than I was the previous two episodes. Maybe it'll be a different one next time. Maybe it'll be the same one again.
Who knows?
Who knows? We don't have a wardrobe department, so you never know with that stuff. Sitting right next to me here, he is the man with the plan, and that plan is to always be awesome. It's the Mr. Ryan Meyerberg.
You're too kind. You're too kind. And as you can see today, I'm not wearing a movie shirt. I do have some at home, but unfortunately they are not with me at the moment. But I am wearing my Iron Maiden shirt, so all my metalheads out there, let you know what's up.
It's good to represent the music lovers as well.
That's right.
We have other interests outside of movies.
Yeah. And music is in a lot of films.
Yeah.
So
yeah, some of the best songs I've downloaded are from movies.
That's right. That's right.
So for those of you new to the show, what we do here is we like to preview kind of what's coming up in the month of movies, kind of talk about which ones we're looking forward to the most. We kind of give some highlights from the previous month, as both from box office perspective and from reviews perspective. And we kind of make our own little picks, our own little bets about which ones we think are going to perform the best. So
and sometimes we're right on the money. And sometimes we're
wildly off, not even close. But let's see how we did here. Let's look first at the box office pick. We're going to put up on screen here just a reminder, both myself and Ryan's picks for best box office. Let's take a look at the winner of that one. And it's Ryan Meyerberg taking it away with The Snowman. I
stole this from a good friend of mine. This move. All right? If you're watching.
To Ryan's good friend out there. So for those of you who don't know, how we base box office as far as in our little competition here is we base it off of 3-day totals. That usually is basically the opening weekend.
Yep.
In most cases, that's the opening weekend. Sometimes movies will come out on a Tuesday.
On a Tuesday or a Wednesday.
And we just know not to pick those movies unless they have an amazing Tuesday through Thursday run. But we usually base it off of the opening weekend of the box office for each movie. It's really kind of the easiest way to compare all these movies, because it's not really fair to compare the full box office of a movie that's been out for the full month as compared to one that just came out the weekend prior.
Yep.
But let's look at the top 5 overall for box office from this past month of September. See where Ryan's Abominable landed. In the 5th spot is Ad Astra. This is the Brad Pitt space opera. Ryan, you had a chance to go see this movie in the theaters. What did you think of it, especially compared to what it ended up making here?
I did, and you know what? I did go see it. It was a slow burn, a very slow film. However, it told a very good story about a father and a son, and about the past and feelings and emotions and moving on from the past, and how in the society that they're in, especially with their jobs, it's very orderly. There's no signs for, shouldn't say signs, there's no growth, or you don't let your emotions get in the way. And this was, it was a good father-son film told through an astronaut.
Coming in at that number 4 spot was your winning pick as far as our bets go, Abominable. It's good to see a nice little animated movie here making the top 5. Not a surprise the money it made. There really wasn't a lot of kid-friendly stuff for this month, so this was kind of your only pick if you want to get out of the house here for this first month of school for some of these kids. Number 3 is kind of the first little surprise from this list. The Brits are taking over here. Downton Abbey coming in at number 3. We're looking at the 30 million mark now with Downton Abbey. We talked about a pretty dedicated fan base. This is a pretty dedicated fan base.
And they showed up. They showed up. They went to the movie. They sat down and they watched. And they talked about it too after, as we'll get to.
Yeah, but if that wasn't the biggest surprise, this one definitely is. Coming here in number 2, the movie Hustlers, coming in at over $33 million opening weekend box office growth. Again, this is just the opening weekend. All these numbers are just the opening weekend for all these movies.
This is very surprising. I think this took both of us by surprise.
But the number 1 slot took it in a landslide. It's It Chapter 2 with a weekend gross of $91 million. Pretty impressive number. Underperformed a little bit, though, from its predecessor, the first It movie, but still clearly running away with that number 1 spot. Not even close.
Don't mess with the clown.
Don't mess with, if there's any lesson here, don't mess with the clown. So that'll do it here for our top 5 box office. We're going to take a quick break here, and when we come back, we're going to go over some of the best reviewed movies from the month of September. So you're going to want to stay tuned for that. This is Popcorn Bucket List.
Disaster tips from the objects left behind.
My home wasn't insured, but you can check your insurance policy now to make sure you're covered. Oh.
My savings are lost, but you can put money aside and plan for unexpected disaster costs.
We're lost forever, but you can scan important documents now so they survive.
For more tips on how to prepare, visit ready.gov.
Welcome back to Popcorn Bucket List. We just got done talking about the box office highlights from the month of September. We're going to go into the reviews, some of the best reviewed movies from the month of September. How we come up with these numbers is we take the Rotten Tomatoes critic score as well as the audience score, and we give an average number between those two scores because we like to see both sides of the argument here, so to speak. But first things first, we're going to talk about our bets, our little picks for best reviewed. We're going to put that back on the screen here. Let's see now who is the winner on that one. And it's the Brits taking it over again.
Taken again.
Let's just go right into the top 5 list, see where it placed with everyone else. Number 5, we saw him in the last list. He's a little bit lower this time, but still in the top 5. It Chapter 2. Pennywise the Clown coming back at it again. This time, though, again, similar to the box office, a little bit lower than its predecessor. Just for a little bit of context, the first It movie came in at about an 85% average score. This one coming in at about 71%. So despite the fact that critics and fans alike both kind of were a little less enthusiastic about this movie, still pretty respectable score at 71.
Positive, yep.
Most movies would beg to have a 71% score.
Yeah.
Coming in at number 4, though, we talked about this surprise before. It's surprising us again. Hustlers coming in at 4 with a pretty good score of 77%.
A very good score.
I think just for those people out there, just a little behind the scenes knowledge, when we talked about this movie in last month's preview, I actually cut about 75% of the stuff we said about it, and we didn't say much about it.
We didn't say much about it.
We said maybe a couple minutes worth.
Yeah.
I cut 75% of it just for time reasons, to make time here and everything. Boy, was I wrong.
Yeah. We were both wrong on this. On this specific movie, we were both wrong, and it hurts. It hurts. But I do want to see it.
Yeah.
I really want to see it now.
It builds that intrigue, and you really kind of like to see these little underdog movies come in, not only be surprise hits review-wise, but also box office-wise, making respectable gains in both aspects, really. So, again, might be one to check out there, at least. Number 3, looking at the top 3 here, we've got the movie Judy. This was a very smaller film. It just made the cut to be considered a wide release, which is why we talked about it last month. But pretty respectable score as well, coming in at 87%, making a 10% jump over its number 4 competitor. This is a movie with Renee Zellweger playing Judy Garland in this biopic. From what I've heard, main things that people like about this movie, as far as the critic reviews go, is Renee Zellweger's performance, which also intrigues me because I've never really thought of. I mean, what other movies jump out at you as a great Renee Zellweger performance?
As a fantastic performance by her. I agree, and I think it's nice that she's getting some notoriety for her role. And this film, now that more is coming out about it, I would also like to see this as well. Obviously you'd want to watch a story about Judy Garland, but it's just with the high performance with the critics and with the audience, it it builds it up as a bigger movie. So this is one I would like to see whenever I get the chance.
Coming in at number 2 for the top 5 reviewed here, it was your pick for box office. Would have been a pretty respectable pick for review as well. Abominable has a high audience score that helped to really bring up that average to 88%. Good to see a good kids animated film also getting a little bit of prestige as well in the review category.
Yep. Not just a thrown together cartoon of something incoherent or anything, you know.
Not another like Toy Story ripoff or something like that.
Yeah. Yep. It's nice to see a film, an animated film, do good financially and critically, which is nice.
Taking that number 1 spot, however, the British are coming. The British are coming. Downton Abbey takes number 1 for best reviewed here with a average Rotten Tomatoes score of 90%. That's from both the critics and the fans. We talked about this movie a little bit more last month's preview. When I picked it, I thought it would do good. I didn't think it would do this good, though. This is a pretty impressive score. I thought it'd maybe make that top 5, but this took the number 1 spot.
Yeah, this was a very interesting one for me because sometimes when you have a television show that gets turned into a movie, or you have a film that already has a really big fan base and they do something a little different, either the audience loves it and the critics not so much, or the other way around, the critics really like the new film or the new feature and the audience doesn't. But this was a kind of a rare cross where the audience liked it and the critics really liked it. So I thought that was very interesting, and well done, Downton Abbey.
And there you have it. There's our top 5 reviewed movies from the month of September. Right now, we're going to go right into our number 1 recommends. This is where we look at all the movies from the past month and give our number 1 recommends that we think you should see. Ryan, why don't you start us off? What is your number 1 recommend?
All right, well, with my pick, it's going to be a little different because I actually got to go watch this movie. It was Rambo: Last Blood. However, it didn't really make our conversations for the box office or for reviews, and it actually did pretty bad for critics. However, the film is, if you like Rambo, if you like action and adventure, if you like Sylvester Stallone or anything of those kind of style movies, you'll love Rambo: First Blood. There's a couple of good scenes in there. It's really not over-the-top graphic, but pretty graphic, pretty enjoyable for that kind of, if you like those kind of films. But you know, you got to remember, he's almost 70 years old or somewhere in that ballpark, and he's out there hitting people, getting hit, bringing the pain. He has a couple good one-liners in there too, like all good Sylvester Stallone movies. He's got 1 or 2 good one-liners in there. It's nice. It kind of wraps up the story of Rambo. However, there's room for another one, but you never know. You never know. We'll see.
But how could he, Ryan? It was the last blood. It was the last bit of blood.
The blood transfusion coming.
Yeah, there we go.
That's the next one.
We thought the
Next
same thing
summer.
about the Rocky series, and then they released Creed, and they're probably going to make 5 more movies off of that one.
Yeah, yep.
So for my number 1 recommend, it wasn't, again, I'm going to kind of go a little bit different route here, but follow me down this rabbit hole. I'm going to say It Chapter 2 is my number 1 recommend. It wasn't my favorite movie of the month. It wasn't necessarily the best one of the month. But I think you have to take into account that first chapter was such a great setup for all these characters that you almost have to think of It Chapter 2 as like, it is one movie. It's a part 1, part 2 kind of thing, really. So it's almost like you can't really complete watching that first It movie without watching the second one. Really, the only issues I had with It Chapter 2 was, unfortunately, its strength was its weakness, where it had about 4 or 5 great main characters that had some really good backstories and I think some really interesting demons to overcome, that the film wanted to address each and every one of them.
Yep.
And each and every one of them would have been great in their own individual movies, but you kind of watch all these scenes happen in a row, that it just kind of drags. But if you look at each and every one of them individually, it is interesting to watch and see these adults now take on this same fear. Because I think we can all relate to that as we grow up. So I really think if you like the first It Chapter 1, you kind of got to see this one to see that really good conclusion of these adult figures taking on their fear, essentially, in the form of Pennywise. Yeah. And on top of that, Bill Hader is really great in this movie. He's one of my favorite actors working today. He's pretty much worth the price of admission, in my opinion. So those are our number one recommends. We hope you check them out, and maybe you have your own number one recommends as well. Tell your friends maybe a little bit too. Spread the word.
Let us know.
Let us know in the comments or something like that. Maybe see us on the street. I don't know. But we're going to take another
movie theater.
Or at the movie theater. That'd be a perfect place to do it. But we're going to take another quick break here. And when we come back, we're going to preview the month of October. I'm really looking forward to this one. There's some really good ones to talk about here. So you're going to want to stick around for that. We'll see you coming up after the break.
Action!
Welcome back to Popcorn Bucket List. We just got done talking about the month of September, reviewing all of that. Now we're going to get into the month of October. This one, just looking at kind of the list of films we have here, I'm looking forward to this one. There's some really interesting ones to talk about. So without any further ado, let's just go right into it here.
Let's get right into it.
October 4th, this is the first weekend here in October. You've got Joker premiering. A lot to talk about with this one.
So excited for this film.
Yep.
So excited. I can't wait to see how his character, his portrayal of the Joker is either similar or different from the past two Jokers that we've seen primarily in the Batman franchises.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm so pumped for it. I can't wait.
Yeah, I know when this was first released or first talked about and teased and everything, I was asked about it a lot, being also a DC Comics fan, as you can tell by the Justice League t-shirt. And I remember thinking to myself right away, yeah, Joaquin Phoenix, probably going to do good. And so far it's sounding like that. It's got a lot of Oscar buzz already. It's been to a lot of film festivals. So this is a good one to look forward to if you want to see a comic book film, technically, but a prestigious one.
Yes.
One that we've seen this very few times.
Yeah, we've
Dark
seen
Knight, some argue Logan, really, or really the only other two that are prestigious comic book films.
Prestigious, but also with Logan, that was also rated R. Mm-hmm. And the Joker is rated R.
Yep.
I think, no offense to Marvel, I don't want to make anybody mad, but I think with all of the Marvel, the superhero, the hunky-dory, hey, Cap, let's go save America. Like, fans are getting into the more of the darker side, the more of the grittier. We even saw it with the last Batman, or Batman with Justice League and Batman vs. Superman, a little bit more darker, grittier. And I think especially with this Joker, if this is successful as people are hyping it up to be, we could see a little bit more of a revolution in some, maybe DC, maybe Marvel, who knows, but take a little bit more darker turn. And that could be cool.
And before people start arguing, well, Logan was rated R, that was Marvel, that was a Fox studio at that time.
Yeah.
That doesn't count. And also, I'd like to point out there to the Marvel and Disney execs who are definitely watching this. He said those comments, not me. Go after him. But we're just going to move on to the next one now. With October 11th, this is a little bit of a bigger weekend. You got 3 wide release films coming out this weekend. The Addams Family, Gemini Man, and Jexi. Let's first talk about The Addams Family. This is an animated reboot, I believe, of the classic TV show. It was also a couple movies of a scarier kind of family, so to speak.
Yeah, I'm excited to see this. You know, when I think of The Addams Family, I think of when I was younger, growing up. I used to watch this on kind of the late night TVs. We used to watch this in the Munsters. Mm-hmm. So I think this, and it'll be nice. I can bring the little one, and we can go watch Addams Family, and I think it'll be a good family movie.
I'm kind of curious how this is going to translate to an animated, more. It looks like it's trying to be more kid-friendly. So I'm just wondering how far they're maybe going to try and push the line on this one.
Okay. Yeah.
That's something I'm really curious about with this movie here. But also coming out that weekend, we have Gemini Man. This is Will Smith versus Will Smith.
No way.
He finally found a match for himself.
For himself.
He's fought everyone, beaten everyone. This is the only last fight he can.
The zombies and I Am
fought the
Legend.
zombies.
You know, he's done it all. And the robots and I Am Robot or I Robot.
He's taken down the apocalypse. He's taken down AI. He needs to take down himself.
Independence Day. He
He's
was taking down
he's
aliens.
taking down the aliens.
He's got everything but himself.
He's checked off all the boxes.
Yep. He'll be interesting watching.
Yeah, this does look like it'll be a pretty interesting action movie, though. I will say I didn't watch a lot of this leading up to it, but I've seen some more commercials and stuff for it now. It does look like a pretty high octane action movie.
Yep.
And I'm kind of curious how they play with this concept of him facing a younger version of himself. You really have that fight of age versus strength, essentially. You know, the younger version would probably be faster, but this older version is going to be a little bit smarter.
Yep.
So I always love to see battles like that kind of take place.
Yep.
So
the chess match can ensue.
yeah.
Yep.
But also coming out that weekend, we have the movie called Jexi. This is basically the movie Her, another Joaquin Phoenix movie, believe it or not. But it's a little bit more of a comedic take. Here you kind of play a little bit more with some AI
the AI, kind of the funnier, lighthearted side, I think, of AI. Than when people say AI, it sometimes brings down a little bit darker of a road. But I think it'll be great. I like Adam.
Yeah.
I think he's a funny actor. Just from the clips that they've shown in the trailers with the car, it's kind of funny with the attitude and stuff. So I think it'll be just a good comedy.
Yeah.
You know, nothing over the top great, but it'll be a nice funny movie.
Yeah. Coming out on a special day, October 15th. I believe that's a Tuesday. This one is for the independent audiences, specifically Jay and Silent Bob reboot. I'm kind of looking forward to this. I like the little indie style Kevin Smith kind of portrays. I think it seems like just kind of watching the trailer, they have some interesting thoughts on the reboot, remake culture we're in right now. And I'm really curious to see what filmmaker Kevin Smith has to say about that.
Yeah, and like if you're a fan of Jay and Silent Bob, you're going to be watching this film. If you like those guys, you will go out and watch this, and I can't wait to see it. If you don't know who Jay and Silent Bob are, you're probably not going to watch this film. But if you do have the opportunity, go check it out. Go watch some of Kevin Smith's earlier works, Clerks 2, Dogma. Go check it out.
Mallrats.
Yeah, Mallrats. It's great. Check them out.
Safe to assume we're probably not going to see this on our box office list.
Probably not.
Could be a competitor for
You can
review.
take it on your box office list if you would like.
Oh, I better be getting 2 points then. If I even make the top 5, I should be getting 2 points for that. But that's a Tuesday special showing. But coming out on that weekend, later that week, October 18th, another big weekend that's got a couple of movies coming out. You've got one that's a little controversial as well, Jojo Rabbit. This is a Taika Waititi, I believe I said that name right. He wrote, he directed, he stars in this. That's very common for him. He usually likes to star, write, and direct in a lot of his projects. But for those of you who don't know out there, this is a satire, which sometimes doesn't gel with audiences. It's basically sarcastic, trying to be a smart, sarcastic comedy, which is why it's really hard to nail those down. But it takes place in World War II Germany, where there's a young German boy who has an imaginary friend who ends up being Adolf Hitler. Played by Taika Waititi.
Yeah.
How this movie got greenlit, I do not know. But it did. But it is trying to take a look at like hate culture and discrimination in that kind of way. Whether or not again, this is a really hard thing to balance. I'm kind of curious to see if it did it well.
There's a lot of undertones and I don't want to say subliminal messaging, but there's meaning in everything that is being put on the screen. And I think this movie is going to be a joy to watch, but a joy to talk about with your friends after to really see the perspectives that people got from it and trying to understand what the filmmaker was trying to tell with the story. So I remember when I first saw the trailer for this, I was like, this movie looks insane.
Yeah.
Like, I can't
like
believe
the first
this
time
is...
Taika Waititi pops out from behind the tree and like, oh no, he's actually playing Adolf Hitler, or at least an imaginary friend version of it.
Yeah.
I kind of wish I had been in the room with the Disney
Yeah.
executives when they just saw one of their most famous directors for their Marvel Cinematic Universe all of a sudden dressed up as Adolf Hitler.
It'll be,
But-
I can't wait to cover that one next month. That'll be really...
That one's going to be one to watch.
Yep.
Coming out that same weekend is another Disney project, Maleficent, Mistress of Evil. These are primarily Angelina Jolie kind of pushed films. First one came out quite a while ago, though. I
Yeah,
want to say
it was
2014.
couple of
was when the
years ago,
first
yeah.
Maleficent came out.
Yep.
So it's been a minute. But I will say one thing I will kind of comment on these movies. You could argue they're along this live-action remake thing that Disney's doing, which I don't approve of. But from what I've heard kind of from people who've seen this movie, they are kind of trying to do different takes on the story, or at least give different perspectives of it. So it's not like a shot-for-shot remake of Snow White or anything like that, or Sleeping Beauty it would be in this case. So again, kind of interesting to see if they continue that tradition going into the second one here.
Yeah, it'll be, you know, after the first one came out, it was almost refreshing hearing the same story from a different perspective, where it was you're kind of preparing yourself for the same story, just a live remake. So I'm thinking with this, it could be a completely different realm and something we're not ready for, and I'm excited for it. I think it'll be good. I really enjoyed the first one, and gotta wait a couple more weeks and I'll be able to see it.
Yeah. Also coming out that same weekend, this is another big weekend. This is probably one of my most anticipated for October. Zombieland Double Tap. This is the comedy sequel people have been begging for. You want to talk about a movie that's been waiting for a sequel for a while. I can't even remember when the first Zombieland came out.
Years ago.
It had been like late 2000s, wasn't it?
Because this was that was kind of early zombie pre-Walking or Walking Dead. Like
this was before really zombie culture took off.
Yep. Because I remember seeing it, I was like, oh, this looks average when it first came out, and I went and saw it and loved it.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite comedies, and I'm really hoping that this star power will bring it back again here into the second one. But comedy sequels.
Also, one of the best cameos, I'm not going to say by who in the first one.
Those who have seen it know exactly what we're talking about.
It only lasts maybe like a minute or two in the film.
I want to, like, I first want to say 5 minutes, but when I'm thinking about it, it's like he's only in it for like 2-3 minutes maybe.
Yeah, so
but
great
for those who
cameo.
watched it, you know what we're talking about.
Yep.
Don't spoil it. But the thing that does worry me about this movie is comedy sequels. They have a bad rap. You never know. Hopefully this one will break the mold, though. Coming out that very next weekend on October 25th, there's a couple of movies here. One of them, Black and Blue. This one kind of deals with a little bit of racial issues with modern day police, I believe. I've seen one of these trailers. There hasn't been a lot of marketing for this movie because I think it's a little bit more on the budget scale, so to speak. But I do appreciate taking the risk, taking a modern day issue. That can be a double-edged sword, though.
Yep.
Again, we'll probably be talking about the same thing with Jojo Rabbit, trying to take some modern day issues and make some talking points with it.
I would even argue throwing Joker in with that. Some of the stuff we're hearing now with theaters maybe not wanting to show it or taking security measures or not allowing people to dress up. I think it'll be a little different for each movie. They'll have their own separate problems and advantages. But I think at the end of the month, it's going to be interesting to sit down and look at all three of those movies and how they tackled each issue or challenge that they're dealt with.
And the reason why that's such a double-edged sword, so to speak, is because if you do handle it well, which making a movie that resonates with audiences is already a battle in itself. But if you're trying to make some sort of political commentary or anything like that, if you handle it well, it works really well. But if it doesn't quite blend, or it seems like you're pushing it or not pushing it enough, then audiences just
tear it apart.
just outright disown it. So again, kudos to you pointed out. I never really noticed. There's a lot of movies this month alone that are trying to make some statements on current climate and current culture. So it could be turning into one of the most controversial months we've ever covered here. So
that'll be
we'll
great.
see.
That'll be great.
The last movie coming out that we're going to talk about here is Countdown. Surprisingly, this is really kind of the only original horror movie coming out in the month of October. This is Halloween season.
Yeah.
But really, when you look at it, the only scary ones are Countdown, maybe Addams Family, and I guess you could maybe argue Zombieland.
Well,
But that's a comedy even.
could you maybe argue Joker a little bit too? Since it's
I don't know if they're going for a Halloween scary though. That's,
True,
That's
true.
what I'm saying. I'm looking more at a horror kind of
horror,
scary.
okay.
This is really kind of the only one that fits that bill.
That's true.
And they're coming out right at the only weekend that this movie could be successful is that weekend right before Halloween.
Yep.
And hopefully it'll get a little bit going that second weekend as well, right after the 31st.
Yeah.
So those are the movies coming out here in October. That's the little preview of them. Now we're going to move on to one of our favorite parts of the show. We're going to make our bets on what we think out of all these movies, which ones are going to do the best box office wise, which ones we're going to do most reviewed wise. So we're going to look at box office first. I won the coin toss before we did the show here. So I'm going to make my first pick for box office. My number one box office pick that I think is going to succeed in October is Zombieland 2. As I said before, comedy sequels, as far as quality-wise, are very hit and miss. More often than not, they're a miss.
Yep.
But they're successful. People have been waiting and clamoring for this movie for almost a decade now.
Yeah.
Almost every year for the past 5 years, there was a rumor, are we going to get Zombieland 2? People have been asking, are we going to get Zombieland 2? They've been waiting for this. It is a star-studded cast. Some of the most bankable stars are in this movie right now. I think this one's going to make the most money in that opening weekend.
Well, that's a very good pick. Looking over these views, I'm going to have to go with Maleficent. It's got that Disney name. Angelina Jolie's going to hopefully crush it. That's what I'm thinking. I think Zombieland was a very good pick, but I'm hoping Maleficent can outdo it.
Very well. So those are our box office picks. Now on to our best reviewed pick. Since I got the first pick on box office, Ryan, you got the first pick for review here. So why don't you tell us, what is your pick for best reviewed?
Well, my pick for best reviewed, some might say it's grabbing at low-hanging fruit, but I am going with Joker. From all the film festivals that it's been at, some people are talking about it's a it's R rating. I think it's going to be a great film. I'm really hoping it is, and I think, as you can say, critics are already glowing about it. So I'm hoping it's going to be awesome, and that is what I'm taking with my pick.
Well, there's some people who say that the easy answer sometimes is the right answer.
That's true.
So that's why, for my pick, I have to go a little bit off the beaten path. I'm going to make a little bit of an upset pick here, because you kind of put me in a corner. Joker was going to be my pick. But I'm going to go with Jay and Silent Bob Reboot.
Ooh, very interesting.
The reason why I'm going for
Okay.
that for reviewed is because we talked about before, if there's a dedicated fan base, we kind of saw this with Downton Abbey, they're going to represent it and they're going to support it. I think because it's actually a smaller franchise, this actually helps it as far as review. It will not do anything box office wise. I will bet almost all the money right now we will not be talking about it in the top 5. But if there's a small enough fan base coming up with a Rotten Tomatoes
loves it.
review, it's a lot less numbers throwing off the average.
Yeah.
So as long as it's good enough for critics to be like, yeah, it's pretty good, and as long as it's good enough for the fans to be like, yeah, it was
That's
pretty
pretty
good, the average, I think, will be a lot smaller numbers and will be able to stay a little bit higher above water.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
I agree with you on that. That makes a lot of sense.
So those are our picks. That's our preview here for October. I'm really looking forward to go through this month. There's a lot of great stuff here, a lot of great genres. You got a lot of comedy, some horror, some dramatic stuff, something for everyone in the family. But for myself and Ryan Meyerberg, that'll do it for us here on Popcorn Bucket List. We will see you next month, and we will see you hopefully in the theaters.